Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 177. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us Marek, Dumas and Michael Waggoner, the creative team of the internationally acclaimed graphic novel, The Lucky Ones, a World War II comic book about a squad of combat engineers. Welcome to the show, Marek and Mike.
Hello.
Thank you, Barney.
You're welcome.
That's
this
so
is a
who is who.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like here, local here in Vermont, we have Mike and Mary in the morning. So you two you could pass off as morning DJs too. See, yeah.
Not Mark and Brian though.
Yeah. So, Mary, congratulations, Mary and the two of you wrote, as we said earlier, you wrote The Lucky Ones, which is a World War II era comic book that takes place during World War II, and it's about engineers. And I'm remembering my history here. In a previous interview, you said the average World War II combat engineer lifespan was average of 53 seconds. Is that true?
Yeah. In a combat environment.
Right.
Yeah. Because they usually went in ahead of everybody else to lay the wire so that they could pull across the water. They were the ones there before the infantry, oftentimes. And they were oftentimes the ones that went in with dangerous things that blew up, and they would do the things that the infantry couldn't do because they didn't want to be carrying around all that explosives. And so combat engineers had a very limited lifespan.
Right. And it was important for them. It was important. And the natural question is, like, if it's such a dangerous position, why did people do it? And the answer is, hey, they could be colorblind, or also they don't want to get, what's it called? Blue chipped?
Right. Blue carded. Blue carded back then meant being sent out of the military without a good recommendation. And the vast majority of people who got blue carded out were people who they couldn't kind of use in other places, mostly because 9 times out of 10, they were gay people that had been found out.
Right.
And so the problem with being a blue card was that you lost your VA benefits, and that was almost worse than anything else. When you left the military back then, it was, if you didn't have your VA benefits, you didn't go to the VA hospital if you'd been injured or had a Purple Heart. Sometimes they even pulled Purple Hearts after the fact.
Wow.
Being a gay man who was found out in the military in World War II was not a good thing.
Right.
But
so
they obviously served. I mean,
right.
10% of the world is gay.
Right. Yep. 1 out of 10. Right. Yep. And so you wrote this. So let's introduce also your letterer. You have Michael here. And so my first question to Mary, then we'll introduce Mike. How did you find Mike?
I had a previous letterer whom I liked very much, but she was not up to doing war stories. War stories require a different kind of lettering.
Okay.
They're not manga. They're not humor, although there is humor in the book. But really, a war story needs a specialty letterer, somebody who knows how to make airplane sounds and what tank sounds sound like, and what a boom, what kind of explosion you're doing, whether it be a real high velocity explosion or throwing a hand grenade. And Mike is the talent that makes this happen.
Right. So Mike, talk to us a bit about this. So how is this different in your lettering as compared to some of your other projects?
Wasn't a whole lot different. The basics apply. But I've always been pretty meticulous about picking the fonts and making sure that they fit the story. So I basically went with an older style font for most cases.
Okay.
Something
Yeah,
simple, something effective.
Yeah, I asked him to go with something that looked like it would have been published in 1946.
Okay. Yeah. Now, and so how did that work? So talk to us a bit about. I'm curious, Mary, is when you found your team. You have Mike, and was it Christian?
Yes, Christian
Is the
Pina.
artist?
Well, this is a real international group. The first thing I did was I put out a call for artists on a comic book Facebook page.
Okay.
And when I did, I introduced what I was interested in doing, why I was interested in a specific kind of art, what I was going to pay them, because artists need to be paid, and how I would budget it. And I got a number of answers. It was almost too plentiful. But then I got Chris's information, and it was like how the angels open the heavens. That was it. He was the guy, and it just took off from there. Now, what was odd is that Christian lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina, so I can't even send mail to him. It doesn't get, which has been difficult in that I'd really like to send him a whole bunch of Sergeant Rock comic books and things, just to get him kind of more familiar with the genre. But everything I've sent has disappeared into somebody else's mailbox. But
wow.
But he is incredible. He is so dependable. You can set your watch by when he's going to send stuff, and he's also very popular. He's already done what is it called? Michael, was it Sex, Lies, and Rock and Roll? Is a recent one that came out from him. That was done by
3 or 4 other books, and I can't remember all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, he's also done something called, I believe it was called Resurrection. Anyway, he's got a plethora of great comic books out there already, and so I was just blessed, very blessed.
So Mary, talk to us a bit about the plot of the book. And this is based off of some inspirations from hearing stories of your father. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, I know I look really young, but my dad was a World War II vet. He is one of the people that assisted in writing this book, the 168 Hinder Forward, which is about the combat engineers during World War II. It's a really dry book with lots of maps in it. But once he got into his dotage and could not leave his wheelchair anymore, my way of entertaining him was to go in and say, "Tell me a story." And sometimes he would be sleepy, and so he'd tell me stories he didn't mean to tell me, which is when the story about, he was colorblind, and so he couldn't go into the Air Corps, which is what he really wanted to do.
Right.
And so he ended up in the combat engineers for that particular reason. He also explained to me another fellow that was in his combat engineer unit, whom honestly, none of these people are exactly my dad in the book, in the comic book. They're all combinations of many people that I've read about, heard about. Some of them I've met. But anyway, he told me the story about another fellow who got into the combat engineers because he was thrown out of the 101st Airborne. Because to get into the Airborne, you had to have a certain number of jumps under your belt so that you could get in. And this one fellow was taking money from people and pretending to be them and jumping out of airplanes. He got caught, obviously, and the next step was either becoming somebody at Leavenworth or joining the combat engineers. So there's a lot of stories that are mixed in there that are stories that I either heard from my father, know about from other fellows, or some that I've read in multiple different books on the subject over the years. And 168 is a hot one. Look at the size of that sucker.
Yeah.
They're even in this old novel, The Soldiers of 44. There's a number of stories in here about gay soldiers. Of course, they didn't call them gay, when this was written in 46, but it was really a handy way of referencing certain things that they went through.
Right. My next question for you, Mary, is you've had some background in writing screenplays. How is writing a comic script different than writing a screenplay for you?
I think Michael and I had this conversation, and it was very eye-opening for me. In screenplays, you have to show it. You can't have, bad screenplays have people thinking things and you can hear their thoughts. The normal screenplay is you have to show it, not dream it. You have to see it, not say it. And so that's why when I was transferring over from a screenplay, I had to really, do a little more thinking about the seeing, because also another thing in a screenplay is it's the director who gets to do the seeing. The writer is just, they write, what is a general outline of what should be happening, but it's the director who does all that hard work of, lining out where somebody's standing, where this is happening, but that's the next thing that you have to do as a comic book writer, is you have to be the director as well. It's not just, the words coming out of people's mouths. It becomes more of an art direction as well as comic book writing.
Right.
So it's been a real stretch, but I love it.
Yeah. So your friend from Chuck's Raw Reviews says, take a gander at these beautiful people. So
Hi, Chuck. He's our editor.
Yes, he just said that. Yeah, he said he helped edit the book for you.
He's also the reason I have Michael.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right.
He's the reason I have
Chuck and I
Michael.
have worked together on multiple projects over the last few years, and when Mary was looking for a letterer, Chuck pimped me out.
Yeah.
That's
Excellent.
what it comes down to.
Right. Well, the thing is when I got Mike, I got a real, much more than just the letterer. I got somebody who is a huge asset to the whole thing. He helps me with things that I just don't understand. It's not like I have written a comic book, but it was a fluffy little romance thing. So
Yowie for 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. See?
Zowie is Yowie. Yeah. That one is currently on the banned books from Amazon.
That's right. I remember you saying that. Yeah, that's been banned off of Amazon. It had a good run, on Amazon. People could watch it at KDP Publishing, but yeah.
Right. It had 2 years. 2 years.
Yep.
And then I think what happened, this is my theory because they don't tell you why.
Yeah.
My theory is that when I ordered a 10-pack to sell at a Comic-Con, some printer in their print on demand said, "Oh my God, there's penises in here." And they went to Amazon KDP and said, "We can't do this." And who knows? Probably enjoyed that.
Yeah. And so how is it different writing the script for the Lucky Ones as compared to when you're writing your manga comic?
Oh, well, first off, the manga one is a rip-off of Romeo and Juliet. So that was,
Right.
it was pre-written practically. I just updated and turned Juliet into Julianne. No, that's not completely true. There's a lot of differences. But writing manga and writing a thing like that was a one page at a time kind of writing,
Right.
because we were the first time we put it out was on Tapas, and the other one that's defunct now. I can't think of the name of. Oh, I'll think of it 20 minutes from now. But anyway, yeah. So we were doing it one page at a time, putting it out as a web comic, and it was pretty much a week to week writing course. Wasn't hard. Whereas this has been a 20-year writing course for this story. Started out as, of course, stories from my dad, and turned into a screenplay. And then now it's going to be it is a comic book. So I'm really excited about somebody actually opening it up and saying, "Oh, look at that."
Now, as you said, some of these are based off of stories of your father. Now, how much did you have to have it be purely biographical, and how much of this did you have to tweak it to make it based on a true story, not biographical?
Well, first off, it is historically accurate. Okay.
Yeah.
So everything that's happening to this team of men happened to a team of men who were serving in the European side of the war. So I absolutely have to follow the timeline that equals things like the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of St. Vith, the Battle of Remagen, all those major points, those bings in the history of the war have to be hit at the right time. So I'm not rewriting history. I'm just highlighting some stories that didn't make it into the newspaper or didn't make it into any movies that Tom Hanks has done. This is more of a people story as much as a war story.
And as you say, this is kind of also a tribute to your dad as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad died in 2008. He was a little over 85 years of age. He had 3 Purple Hearts by the time he left the war. And he then he continued to serve his fellow soldiers by working for the disabled American veterans, the veterans of foreign wars, and the Veterans Administration. So he had a very warm spot in his heart for the people he served with, the men that he knew, and the men that he left behind.
Right. So, Mike, what were some of the things about this particular project that kind of drew you into it?
Well, I was a fan of the classic, Sergeant Rock, the Nam, all those Charlton war books. It would be nice to do a war book again. That's not something you normally see out on the shelves. It's got a different approach to it, and I felt it would be a challenge. Go back and do something that's not just your typical superhero book. Go back to the early days where there was tons of war comics,
right?
And just keep pushing forward. Do something a little different than what I've been doing. And it was a great story. It had a hook. I saw a lot of potential in it. And so I signed up.
So you mentioned earlier that Mike brought a lot, not just lettering. What were some of the things that Mike brought that kind of made push the project further along for you?
Well, there was one that he came with automatically. One of the guys in my story is named Tex, and Mike helped me make a voice for Tex. Really, Tex, he sounded kind of, well, he didn't have that twang that he needed, and Mike was able to just adjust just a little bit within the lettering that just what Tex sounds like. Other things that he has done is, as I was saying earlier, he knows when you're talking about airplanes flying overhead, the sounds that the airplanes are making should be overhead, not down on your When you see little puffs of smoke in the art, you know that those are little bullets that are hitting, and he knows how to say ping, ping, ping. He just adds such a reality to even dream sequences that he's fabulous. What can I say?
So talk to us about the timeline. I'm really curious about how this works when you're working with a group of people. Now, so Mary, you write the script, then you send it off to Christian and say, can you draw this? And how did that,
Right.
can you talk us the timeline? I'm curious.
Well, because of obviously Christian's not in the United States, I've had to break it down into 8-page units that he sends back to me. I told him what my budget was, and I told him how I'd be paying him early on.
Yeah.
And he likes having the monthly income that 8 units of pages works for him.
Okay.
So I send him monthly. I send him 8 pages. Sometimes I send 5 because I need an extra spread or an extra blank page, so that, you know, like there's one page particularly, not in this first one, but later on, where Bill, our main person, is writing a letter to his mother. And so I needed Chris to just send me a blank guy writing a letter to his mother thing, so that later Michael will go in and write the letter to his mother, letter it, you know. There's a couple of pages like that when I need those, they get kind of tucked in separately from the 8 pages that I normally have him do. He sent me a Christmas card with all my guys drawn around a Christmas tree.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my God, it was just so wonderful. Might have to write that into the story.
Definitely.
And so he draws it out. Is it full on art, like everything's done, and then it goes to Mike next?
Well, what we do is we go back and forth at least 2 times, sometimes 3, 4 times. He pencils it, and then I kind of compare it to the script and say, yeah, this. I really give him a lot of free reign, because I feel like you're an artist because you enjoy doing something, and if you're just doing something that somebody tells you exactly what to do, you've lost the fun of it. Right. So he does a lot of things free range, and as a result, sometimes I have to go and look at my script and say, that'll work better because my script says this, but that'll work better. So I do adjust the script as it goes along. Very seldom I've said, panel 2 needs to be a closer up, or panel 5, we don't need so and so because he's not with them anymore, or those sorts of things. And so that's the pencils. Then he inks, and then I also have him as my colorist, because I didn't want to have that golden thick color that is very popular right now with the comic book industry. I wanted it to look more of the 40s, 50s, 60s style of inking. Of coloring. After
that happens, so when does Mike get involved then?
Mike gets involved when I get 24 pages together, because that's the size of a floppy. So when I get to the point where I've got, ready to do 24 pages of it, and then Mike gets involved and does the lettering, that's when we also go back and forth about some little bits about the way that somebody's speaking. In fact, the very end of this particular first episode has a real zinger. And Michael and I kind of came up with the way it zings at the end. So
no, Michael,
back and forth, but we got it.
Yep.
Right. So I'm kind of curious too, Michael, when you're there, how much, as the letterer, you seem to be the last person to touch the page, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, there's any point where you know, with your skills with Photoshop and whatnot, do you ever have to move and adjust the image a bit to give you room to put in a word bubble? How does that? Yeah, I see you're nodding your head. So how does that?
All the time.
You
Yeah.
had to flip a
And
panel.
yeah, and that comes with the territory. I mean, it's just something that has to be done.
Yeah.
Right.
Artists, Christian's good about it, but I've worked with some artists who wants to fill the whole page and not leave room for any dialogue. So that's when the work comes in.
Right.
Okay.
Stacking letters on a page is easy, but making it where it flows
Right.
and the text fits without covering any art of any importance, that's when the tricks start happening. You gotta, because there's an art to lettering. There's an art to making it flow. There's an art to the way it's read.
Mm.
I've seen so many indie creators just slap words down in Microsoft Paint or whatever stock program that came with their computer in Times New Roman font, and it just looks bad. It's hard to
Right.
read. It's hard to follow. You've got to make it work. Cross balloon tails or big no. It's just, lettering is an art,
Right.
and it's got to be
Another,
studied as an art.
another
Yeah.
part of the lettering that he's done that just brings things to life is, the tail on a balloon. If it's just a straight tail, it doesn't tell anything about the way the person is speaking. If the
Okay.
person is speaking because they're making a joke or they're speaking because they're in pain,
Mm.
the tail needs to be different for each kind of those pieces.
Well, even the balloon is different. If
Yeah,
someone's in pain and in stress, the balloon's going to be a little wobbly and lopsided and not as clear. Same way with the tail. It's going to be distorted. It's going to be wiggly. That shows it out.
Right.
Font size within the balloon. If you have a big balloon with a little font, that signifies that they're whispering. But
Mm.
if you have a big font size and a small balloon, that also signifies yelling. And you got
Mm.
everything in between. And you can say a lot with, your font choices and your balloon choices.
Mm.
So it's a lot more than just slapping on balloons onto a page.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. And like you say, there's an art form to it based off of also what font you use, where it's placed on the page. You have to make sure the eye follows it the correct way.
Yep.
Yeah.
and there's lots of ways to adjust the way a person is talking. So an example is somebody who not really stutters but pauses a lot in their conversation. There's ways to do that so that when you're reading it, you're going, oh, that guy pauses a lot during his conversation. You can hear them in your mind, obviously,
Right.
but you can hear them because of a good letterer.
Right. And so getting back and talking about the story, you already have 5 issues done,
Ready to go.
correct?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
it will be an 8-issue floppies, and then it will become an omnibus, I guess, a graphic novel.
Mm.
It's written intentionally to be a graphic novel, although because of the way that I've divided it into 24 pages, there are many crescendos in each part of the story.
Right.
And that's, I don't know, I might end up doing a little bit of adjusting when it becomes a graphic novel, because you can't have that many crescendos, because people are always like, okay, but in comic book writing, you need those. You
Right.
need to have it so that people want to see what the next, what's going to happen next.
Right. And so where do you? So for those that are listening or watching who might be an armchair historian of World War II, I'm saying maybe not an expert, but knows enough. What would be some of the surprises that they would learn from this series?
Well, I think the first thing is that a lot of waiting around for a war to happen is waiting around for a war to happen. I kind of say it's like being a firefighter. You're always sitting there waiting for horrible shit to happen, and then you go and save everybody. And so there's a lot of building of friendships and getting to know each other, and stupid stuff, fights and things like that because of something dumb that happens in between the battles. And the battles readjust everything that you knew about each other too. So each part of being a military man in a war situation adjusts your way of looking at the world every time you hit that possibility of dying.
Right.
So it really does. Some of the gentlemen in the squad grow; they become better people. Others become they're just who they are, because they're either too old to adjust, or they're just unwilling to adjust. Others are brokenhearted when they lose someone, whether it be someone at home or someone on the battlefield. So it's more of it's about the human condition as much as the war.
Right. And you did kind of mention that too, about even though the term PTSD was never used at this time, they used the term shell shock or other terms for that. How do you address that as a writer, addressing that within the series?
Well, it is the first scene of the series. Bill, our protagonist, awakens from a horrible nightmare. And thank you, Michael. Michael came up with the line, when is this ever going to end? And so, Bill, when we first see him, he's a cranky old man. He's telling the stories to his grandson, and he's a cranky old guy. And as we're being told his stories, we start to realize that he wasn't that cranky old guy when he was 20. So the way that the story is told also, it helps the way that the story is told with the art, in that an art piece, that art piece is done with the squiggly lines around the outside. So the reader is clued in that that's not real life. Okay. And then he awakens, and we're in real life. Right. The other section that where we can use that kind of art is when he's suddenly imagining something. He's 75 years old. He gets a little dizzy, and then he sees things that were there, but it was 50 years ago they were there. Right. Other ways of telling this story are he thinks of things in his own mind. So he isn't necessarily dreaming on this page, but it's muted and it's brought down, and the colors are less, because here he is thinking about what was going on. Right. So it's so the way you can tell a story with that kind of jumping around is all in the way the art is approached. Right. And again, Chris has hit it on the mark almost every time. So I'm really happy with him.
So let's chat a bit about the your your pledge levels for people to check out. I love your pledge levels. So I love the idea that you have, of course, your $1 pledge level. Just here's here's your support. You get the heartfelt thanks. Now, the heartfelt thanks, is that in PDF format, or is the heartfelt thanks that you mail?
It's mind melding.
And I love the fact that you have your PDF version, $5, $5 PDF, and that is the 24 pager, right?
Yep. That's the 24 pager sent to you as a PDF. Limited download, because in the future we'll be pulling it back and using it as the part of the graphic novel. Sorry, lost the word there. So in the future would be pulled back because it needs to go into a different way of protecting your intellectual property. But in the meantime, if you're ordering a actual printing of it, you get to own that forever.
Right.
Maybe in 50 years it'll be worth some money.
Yeah. And you said, and so for the $10 level, you do get the comic book.
Yep.
The physical copy.
Yep.
Okay. And then plus the PDF as well.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And for $15, for the $10, you don't get the PDF.
You just get the comic book. Right.
That's right. Okay. So for $15, you get the printed copy, a personal letter from
me,
from you, and the PDF then too.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And talk to us a bit about the classroom or retail reward.
Oh, okay. So this is where I have to kind of be a little more specific when I put it up, because this is going to be a T for teen kind of book, right?
Right. Yep.
So I don't want third graders to be given it. It's also why I'm not putting it out as a PDF for that 5 books situation, because I don't really want a teacher to be showing it up on the class big screen and in 3rd grade, and then why are those guys naked? Well, they're naked because they're in the shower, honey. But the other situation, of course, is that as we go along, we're going to be talking about what were fags back then. We don't need to have children hearing those words, because then they'll think it's okay. We can say those words in a historically accurate way where teens already know that is not a word we use. So that's why I've kind of hedged my bet by telling them this is a teen or higher book. Right. And then, of course, I also own a very small, tiny comic book store. And so I like having the ability to support Kickstarters and get 5 books at a time, because then I can have them on the shelves. Right. So that's why I did that one.
And I love your $100 pledge.
Oh,
the graphic novel. This is why, because if you do the math on this, you're going to be backing all 8 issues at a minimum of $10 each, plus shipping. This ends up probably being a better deal in the long run.
Yep.
Because you're not paying for shipping for each single issue at $10 each. So this actually is the best deal on here, is paying $100 for all 8 issues. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's because I really want to convince people that I have a commitment to this, and it will be a finished product. Yeah. Because Mike will tell you, there's so many people that have done one and done, where you think that you get to the end of that story, and you're like, oh, good, I'm really interested, and then they never do anymore.
Right. So here's the thing. So you're going to have something, Mary, for the 4 people so far who've backed that graphic novel. I'm
going to send them a copy of book 1, just because, to thank them.
Okay. But then again, when they want to come back for the second Kickstarter and 3rd Kickstarter, you're gonna have buttons. You're gonna have like World War II era buttons that or something that you can.
Returnee, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, each cover is going to be a different art. Each
Right.
cover is going some. I've already got different artists lined up for each cover, so people are going to be getting something completely different. So
Right.
it's not like if they support all 8 books, all 8, excuse me, floppies, they'll each and every cover is going to be a different cover, and then
Right.
of course we'll have a even different cover for the grand finale, the graphic novel. And by that time maybe I'll be able to hire somebody like Billy Tucci to do the cover. Wouldn't that be cool?
So I was gonna say this is an amazing piece, and so you have and Mike, you're there for all 8 issues too, correct?
He better be.
Yes, maybe. I'll think about it.
Yeah, these are gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of work. I love the story. I love the educational aspect of it, and as you say, it's a story that needs to be told, especially as you're saying that we are now at their with the close to the 80th anniversary of D-Day now.
Right. We
Yeah,
just passed the 80th anniversary of the Pearl
Pearl
Harbor.
Harbor. Yeah,
And D-Day, while we were obviously fighting, our fighting men were out there already before D-Day. They were in North Africa, getting into
right.
Italy, all that. D-Day is the day that we really said America is going to win this war, and
Mhm.
and so it's an important date. It really is. It's a date that men, and I mean all Americans really, became truly Americans. There was no more, I'm an Italian and I live in this neighborhood, and I'm Irish and I live in this neighborhood, and I'm going to beat you up. That kind of stuff
Right,
ended when World War II came,
right.
because they were all Americans. And I kind of miss that we've got that, that theory doesn't exist right now. Kind of miss
Right.
it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. So, yeah, this is a good, exciting stuff, and I'm really looking forward to reading the story. So,
Thank you.
uh, so perfect. So, listen. So the two of you are going to have to come back on, when to promote issue number 2 next too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 2,
Per-
3, 7, 8. Um, if you look at our website again, you'll notice that I've got covers for 1, 2, 3, and 4 ready.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
already got Chris has already got 126 pages done.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
right. You said he's already
he's chomping
5
at the
issues.
bit to get this out. Yeah. So
Right.
and he's a workhorse. So
Right.
book 2 there is that's Bill trying to decide if he wants to go to this damn reunion with the ghosts of his colleagues from World War II.
Right. Yeah.
Then book 3 is a different artist, someone I know, Ben, and he is more well known for his fantasy art. So when he
Oh,
pulled together
cool.
this, yeah, he does art that looks very much like the Skeksis from the
Dark Crystal.
yeah, Dark Crystal. Yeah. So imagine, coming into this as a fantasy art. So
Right.
yeah, real pleased with that one. And then of course number 4 is the pretty much the crescendo of the first writing of the
Right.
first chapters of the book, and that's why we have the whole team on the cover, and I can name every single one of those guys. They're starting to really Mike will tell you they do have their own individual personalities, and you start to realize it after a few pages.
Plastic City Comic Con, July 16th. We will both be there promoting,
We will have copies
the
of the
book,
comic book.
and we will have
Yes,
copies. Thank you.
we will have
Wow.
copies of the comic book at Plastic City. It's a one-day Comic-Con here in Massachusetts. I'm really excited to go to it. I haven't been to it before. And then the other thing that I got accepted at SPX in Maryland in
Nice.
September. And I am so excited. I've been trying to get into that for 5 years, and that's not counting the 2 years of COVID.
Right.
So I'm very, very happy that Small Press Expo said yes.
Cool. Congratulations.
Hopefully, we'll have 3 books to show them.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about your work, Mary, what's the best place they can go to?
The website definitely is the Lucky Ones -comic.com.
Okay.
If they want to learn about my Yowie, that website is justyowie.com.
Justyowie.com. And how do you spell Yowie?
Why you ask hard questions? YAOI.
YAOI.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that one has, my the reviews on the previous book, and so people will say, "Oh, I guess she can write." Maybe my next book will be about something different.
Right.
Yeah, there it is.
There
Just
it is.
Yowie.
Just
Romeo
Yowie.
X Julian. That's a couple of reviews. People liked my shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to go in and adjust that. Bad me. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't get on Amazon anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
So I'm gonna have to ask the printer who's doing the Lucky Ones what they'll do for me for Romeo X Julian, the first date.
Perfect. And Michael, if people want to find your work, where can they go?
My work is all over the place.
It is all over the place. I know.
Lucky Comics is one of the sites I work for. Free Fall Press on Facebook is my publishing. Yeah. And there are countless freelance gigs all over the place.
Steal good people.
If I'm not working on 5 projects at once, I kind of lose it. I don't know what's going on. I'm always juggling 4 or 5 books at a time.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to having you come back on again to chat about your next issue.
Very, very much appreciated and fun.
You're welcome. And I heard the other interview. So it's Dumas, is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. And I know Michael Waggoner. That's easy to say. Yeah. So under Waggoner, is the first G or the second G is silent?
Either one.
Okay.
Depends on what part of the family you ask. Because there was splitting off. Some it's Wagoneer, some it's just Wagner. Depends on which brand.
Right. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right.